Okay, Tom Farrell, thank you ever so much for joining me today. There's lots that we can catch up on, and I know you're only around about 29, if my memory serves me right.
But, I'm hanging on to my 20s. I'm hanging on.
Okay, but yeah, you've had a heck of a career, and you know, you started. Well, I don't know. I'll just bring up the my screen, and we can have a look to see when you did start. So let's have a look at this. It might take you back a bit. Can you see that there, Tom?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, you got me there. So I'm going down here, and back in 2006 is your first top 10 performances there. Just talk me through a couple of those performances if you can remember.
The ones that probably stick out more than anything are probably more than likely running 9 flat at Stretford. So that'll have been earlier in the year in May. The world-class facility of Stretford, where I love racing. 6-lane track, hidden, protected by the trees. A good old BMC night. Loved it. I got numerous English school qualifiers there, I can remember, and then obviously that qualified me for the English schools, which at the time was the big deal. So I think I'll have been bottom age into boys. I think intermediate boys, I'll have been bottom age, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And went and basically got my, just exposed really. It was the first time I'd gone to like a big national competition, probably a combination of, because what was that? We're looking at in July, so into July. Just nerves, whether it be the big national competition. It was Gateshead, which was great because I'd raced there a few times. I think I knew it. I was vaguely remember it. And just kind of, that was probably my first eye opener to be like, oh, people are good. Like, not this isn't Cumbria anymore. This is a national competition, and I think 21st or virtually last is the 24 in the race. But yeah, so that was what you don't see before that on Power of 10, which is a shame it doesn't come up. I made the Cumbria team for the English schools cross country my bottom age junior boy, so year 8, I think that'll be. Second year of secondary school. Year 8, yeah. And I finished somewhere like 340th. Like, there's only probably about 360 people in the race. It was in Maidstone, Kent, and my dad, who you'd be more than familiar with, he drove all the way from Carlisle, all the way down to Maidstone, Kent to watch me race. And obviously I raced and was virtually last. Didn't have any high expectations. It wasn't like I was expecting to be any higher up.
And that was in the cross country in a field of about 250. Would that be right?
Yeah, 250, 300, whatever the numbers were, I was virtually last. Not far off it anyways, probably 10, 20 from the back.
That's worth knowing.
It wasn't.
Can I just pause on there? Because you say your dad went down. Was your dad your first coach at the age of 13, 14?
Dad's never coached me.
No.
John Clementson, you might remember, Border Harrier coach. John's coached me from the age of 15 to 18, and there's a couple of club coaches prior to that, but maybe a little bit earlier, 14, I maybe moved up, 14, 15, when things kind of started to get a little bit more serious. But prior to that, it was, club nights. I grew up on a track with mum and dad and their background in track, mum being the high jumper, the commies, and dad just being, I always take the mick out of him. I just call him domestically good. I say domestically decent, which he hates. But yeah, so I grew up on a red surface, loved track. So I was just at Border Harry's all the time. It was my life. And I genuinely loved the sport. That's where it came from. So that's where it kind of started. So John Clementson was the guy, and he's a family friend. He coached my dad. He's probably very close to what my dad would look up to. My dad lost his dad, or my granddad, when my dad was 26, I think. So for those years after that, I would say, if anybody, my dad would probably look up to him more than most. So yeah, he means a lot to me, and he coached me up until the age of 18.
Gotcha. And really, what I was trying to get a hold of there was two things. Probably how many days a week you were training at, I guess, the ages of 13, 14, 15, if you were doing other sports. and perhaps some of the interesting things you might have been doing at those ages? Was it hills?
Well, I know I had a paper. I had a paper round 6 days a week, 6 mornings a week. I was up at the crack of dawn, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm probably the first awake now in our house. Back then, 13, 14, I mean, at least 2 times with, down the track or hills, 2 sessions with the group, maybe 3 runs in there, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember the time. It probably wasn't until I was like, honestly, I don't think it was until I got to university at 18, 19 that I even knew what a double run was. Like, wow, people run twice in a day, which I think it's changed massively. And I think it's one of the reasons why we're seeing young kids running quicker and quicker at a younger age, just because there's more availability of knowledge on the internet, availability of what training really is. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It might not be a good thing either. But I guess that could be that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But yeah, so probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week, maybe runs, maybe 6, about 13, 14, maybe.
Right. So I'm just thinking. So what the first question I got here is when did you realise that you could be an international athlete? Because as you say, you're in the top 5 in the European Cross Country Championships. You've run 13:10 for the 5,000 meters. You had an impressive junior career, an impressive NCAA career at Oklahoma State. Is it Oklahoma State University?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which has seen a lot of UK-based athletes transition through very successfully. And I'm going back to Paul Larkins, John Wild, yourself, perhaps more recently Mark Scott.
Mark Scott was Tulsa.
Good shout.
In the state of Oklahoma, but Mark Scott was Tulsa. Close by, though, very close by. Dan Watts was another British guy. Abby Hetherington's been there. Kaylee Dodd has been there. Kian Davis, I think his name is there currently. I think it's Kian Davis. Kian something. But yeah, no, it has had. Yeah, so yeah, go ahead, fire away.
So the question was, when did you realise that you could be an international athlete? When did the penny drop? I could be good at this.
Probably. I mean, looking at that, what you've got pulled up there. If you look at so if you go, I think if you scroll down a little bit, 2007 will have been my first English team I made. So when I finished 4th at the English schools in the bottom last row, 24th of March, so 4th at the English schools.
Yeah, of course.
In Leeds. That qualified me for the England team at the home counties. Obviously, and it was in it would have been in Ireland. We flew over. I don't know why it's not on that list, to be fair. Anyways, but that was my first team I made. England, GB, whatever. And obviously that probably gave me a bit of a sniff, bit of a back then. But still, there was people who were better than me. I wasn't no means the best. And then I think it was, closer to the time I was knocking on the door of in British teams, whether it be getting close to Eurocross teams before I went to uni. But track really wasn't really a thing that I'd got close to, like qualifying times. And I think part of that, looking back, was, I think a lot more kids these days get more stressed about it, but it was a good way for me to get training done, but not stress too much about the outcome. And that'll be partly, my dad has been involved in my career a lot, but he's never coached me. So between him and my coach, John, they would kind of come up with my race plan. My dad would kind of pull the strings on that, and John would kind of work training around it. So Dad's never coached me. But I
think what a lot of people will be thinking right now, Tom, is your first English skills experience 2 years earlier, you'd come around about 200th, and 2 years later, you're coming 4th. What was the difference? And I think you were saying you're doing maybe 3, 4, possibly 5 days a week by that stage.
Probably just accumulation of training, really. my sessions will have got, we were really cautious with my, well, this is me looking back. I didn't really think about it at the time, but we were really cautious with my progression. When I started training with John, it was obviously like it's a senior group, just the typical club group that we know of, Tuesdays, Thursday nights. If the boys were doing 4 by a mile, I might have been doing, 400, 800, 400, 800. It was really watered down.
And that's key. That is, because I think a lot of juniors will have just done the full session. Because I mean.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Like, I can remember the day that I did my first full session, and all the guys were like just hitting the mic, go, "Hey, he's finally here." Yeah, and I can't remember what age that was, but like, so it would probably been an accumulation of training. I think I did 4 English schools cross countries. So I did the first one as a bottom age junior, top age junior, bottom age inter, top age inter. And my last 2 years, I didn't do them because I chose to try and qualify for the World Cross instead. And I think I did both years, or definitely one of the 2 years. I went something like, virtually last, somewhere in the low 200s or mid 150s, top age junior. And then bottom age inter, I was 33rd. And then this one you've got highlighted here, top age intermediate, I was 4th. So I think part of it was, accumulation of training. Part of it will have been, a momentum of, because obviously the cross countries like Northern Cross and stuff isn't on there. So like just being more prominent in Northern cross country races or other cross country races where I've kind of gone, like I've raced that person and I've come close to him, and I'm holding my own a little bit more here. So probably just that really. And I remember because it was in Leeds, that course, it wasn't Roundhay Park, it was which one was
Temple
it?
Meads.
It suited.
Temple
Which
Meads,
one?
Temple Meads.
It might have been, yeah. It was basically, Bash, you either running
cross
uphill.
Country course. I think I might have been there actually.
Yeah. It was either uphill or downhill. There was no point at which you were just running, which I think suited me. And I remember my dad, like, I know he hasn't coached me. My dad would just kind of be the tactics person because he'd never come to races. He was just like, I'm doing your training. I can't really do much for you on the race day, which is ironically very similar to what a couple of my coaches have been like that after that. So my dad's like, look, get out hard, settle in, like, and just, you belong up there. So I got out hard and I was in the top 5, top 10. And I think I just kind of stayed there. And then I've always had this thing, and I'm sure a lot of people have already heard it, and it's probably my dad instilled it in me, but like, I've always kicked off the top of a hill just to make people hurt even more. And it was, my dad wasn't very good, but he would love to cross country race. So probably that's how he hurt a lot of people running too. And just to, even if it's a 20-meter surge, but people think, oh my God, he's picked the pace up at the top of the hill. And so I did that at one point. And I remember getting to the front of the English schools, I was leading it and I basically shit myself. And I was like, oh God, like I need to slow down, I'm leading now, because I'd never been in that position before. Even though I'd done an English schools on the track, I'd never led the race. And I just kind of was like, wow. Anyway, end of the race, I ended up finishing 4th. I think Ross Murray won that day. I can't remember who was in front of me. I might remember the team roughly, but it was still a good team.
And the big question there, Tom, is how many of those people from that 16-year-old team in 2007 are still running now? Because we know Ross Murray went on to some good things, but he didn't stay at it.
Yeah, Ross was probably the one. Ross was probably the one that did go on to obviously international things and world-class performances, but I don't think anybody in that team did really. I can remember the England team, like on the girls team, Kate Avery and Lily Partridge on the team, who they're both still racing now, obviously. I think Laura Waitman may have been on the team, so the girls team's probably done better than that whole boys team has.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's me and Ross have always had this conversation about people who are there or not there anymore, and it is interesting and fascinating to have that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I was second in the intermediate cross country all those years ago, and I think there were three of ours that went on to senior internationals, but you're right, a lot of them just didn't progress for whatever reason.
But going back to your original question about when did I realize that I could be an international athlete, it's just quite funny this, because I think after that I could realize I could be good if I give it a whirl. And I took the risk and come out to America, and we can talk about that transition in a second. But if I unfortunately got injured in 2012. I had the Olympic time and I got a stress fracture, so I was unable to go to the trials, which, as we know in the UK, generally, if you get the time, you kind of on the team. Yeah. Not so much now in the men's 15 and women's 15, but generally that's kind of true across most events still. But if I'd have made the Olympics in 2012, that would have been my first track championship for GB.
Right.
Because now, part of it was because I went to America, and because it was the couple of years before that, where I probably would have made junior teams. I didn't make any junior teams up until the age of 18. Then after that, I know in 2010 there was a World Juniors in Canada, which I had the time for, and they chose not to pick me because I'd run it early in the American season. And now whether that's politics and British athletics, or at the time UK athletics, yeah. If it's my choice, I would go experience. I'd go let the kid have experience. I understand that I may have run the time in, May, and the championships are in August, but like if no one else has got the time, why not? It's experience is experience. Now I know that there's money and all that kind of stuff involved, but we won't get into that. So I didn't do that. There probably was a junior champs in 2011, but we were very good at and again, this is when my dad and my college coach Dave, who's a great, I still have a fair amount of contact with. He's a great coach. We were very set on, you're either you can't do both seasons. You can't do an American season and a British season or European season and then come back and run NCAA cross country. You're just too much. You need a break. So similar to my progression as a youngster, and kind of holding me back and being sensible, I think we were also very sensible through those years. One of the reasons why, if you look at my Power of 10, through the years I was at uni, I virtually didn't race in the UK in the summer, unless it was 2013 I came back because I was annoyed that I didn't have if you look at 2010 for example, there is no races in the UK or in Europe. They're all in the US. There's a World Cross in Poland, of which I was picked I was picked off the back of my NCAA performance, I think. And yeah, so there's, as you can see, there's very few meets,
yeah, you're an American.
Yeah, virtually, and I believe that's true still. I think people who try and people get slaughtered. The prime example is NCAA cross country. They have an amazing race NCAA cross country, fly straight home to do the Liverpool European cross trials. And then they try, and then if they've made the team, for example, then a week later or 10 days later, they're racing in the European cross country. That's 3 world-class, virtually cross countries in the space of 4 weeks, which you just can't do it.
I think what I say as well, Tom, is that the NCAA Division 1 cross country championships is the highest quality event in the world, higher than the World Cross, because it's come 100th in the NCAAs. You've got to be running, 29, close to 29 flat. In the World Cross Country, you probably talk about 29, 30 guys coming 100th or even 30 minutes.
I mean, I know I've had 2 very good experiences, but the 2 times I've run European Cross, I ran 2 consecutive years, I believe 2012 and 2013. I think they picked me based off my performance in the NCAA, and I think in 2012 I was 9th, and in 2013 in NCAA cross country, 2012 NCAA cross country, I was 9th, and then I went on to finish 4th at European Cross, and then I beat all the British guys, and then the year after that I was 16th at NCAA Cross, in Terre Haute, and I finished 12th. There you go, 12th in European Cross, and I think Andy Vernon was the only Brit ahead of me that year.
Yeah.
So, and that was based on, I said to the selectors, look, 2012, I think one of the things that helped me was Terence Mahon was the endurance coach at the time. And I think he'll have been sitting on the board or the selection panel going, look, 9th is no joke. This, who wants to run, he needs to put this guy in the team. If it wasn't, and then I kind of proved it that year. So if it wasn't for Terence, I may not have had both of those years in the European Cross. And I believe both years we got a team medal, I want to say, which is cool. I think whether it's British athletics or whether kids in the NCAA believe that they can come back and run, virtually 10Ks in the space of 4 weeks. Like, and add in there, by the way, 6 to 8 hours of time change plus a 12-hour travel. That's just like it just doesn't happen. So I think a lot of Americans get slaughtered. I say Americans, Brits who are in America get slaughtered for, you see, they come back and they can't run well. Well, just take into account what they've done. How many people have come off World Cross and a week later done a 10K at Liverpool and ran well? Like, very few people do that.
No, I absolutely in full agreement. And I actually did come back for a World Half Marathon Championships when I was in America. And yeah, I found it hard. An 8-hour time difference. I was coming from California. And it was a tough one. And I didn't run well at those World Championships, but it's kind of like I was trying to do everything, and I realised that. So a couple of things I was going to ask you now is the transition from the UK educational system to the American educational system. How did that work out for you? I mean, there'll be
educationally.
Well, not so much educationally, but the transition in your lifestyle and your training.
Lifestyle.
Training in particular, but lifestyle is a big part of that. Did you up the training?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, the nice thing is that when you turn up to uni in America, you've got your friendship group made for you already, right? So that, we all live together. The freshmen, the first years, we're all in the dorms together, all had nice rooms. And you jump straight into training. So like, those are your friends, we get to train because it was so hot in Oklahoma, we're training at 6 o'clock in the morning. So you bond straight away with those people. And for me, running was probably, the one thing that didn't change. Like, I always still ran, like everything else had changed. I was away from home for the first time, like consistently at the age of 18. I'd moved across the other side of the world.
And how was that? I mean, was that easy to transition to, or was that a challenge?
What, as in being on the other side of the world?
Being away from your family, friends, and Cumbria. I mean, there's a lot of people that think Cumbria is the best place in the world. I'm not going to argue.
It is. It is the best place in the world. I didn't miss it too much. I obviously missed the people, but I've come to realize, and this is, I haven't seen my family since January because of COVID. I'm very good at compartmentalizing. And I think as athletes, you have to be able to be good at that, whether you're at a major championship or whether you are in the midst of a training cycle and you're missing someone's birthday or you're missing a family Christmas or, some event. You've got to be very good at compartmentalizing. And every so often you sit there and go, yeah, I miss my mum and dad. And I would hope they think the same. But at the same time, I think they're good at compartmentalizing too. And they're not the parents to, text me all the time going, oh my God, I miss you. Oh my God, I miss you. Oh my God, I miss you. Because I think that makes it worse for both parties, because you've got both people saying it, and then the more you say it, the more you think about it. So I think as far as maybe I'm lucky, but mum and dad are fairly laid back. They're understanding. They know that they're also travelers. They they're not gypsies. Travelers as far as they love traveling. So they love my sister's currently traveling in New Zealand for a year. So it's like, go out and see the world, like go and do it. And they're really excited for that. So they've never been the type of parents to be like, try and hold me back and do something. So I think that made it easier. But yeah, I mean, I think I adapted quite well. Like I said, I think running was the middle, the center, the epicenter, because it was like, well, I still get to do that. And then everything else around it changed, which is a lot of change. But I think, again, just my situation's lucky. I came into Oklahoma State and Dave was coaching me then. And because the team was so good at the time, none of the freshmen, so the first years, would ever run cross country in their first year. So there was no pressure to run well. It was just, look, adapt, train. And the 3 years after that, I was there, 3 or 4 years after that, we always laughed about it, because you'd see the freshmen come in and they would work their asses off for 6 weeks. They want to prove themselves as the big dog. They want to get everyone race each other in races. Everyone races each other in training. They run harder, And 6 weeks later, all the freshmen just go, right? I've got a head cold. Or I've got a bit of a tight Achilles. Or I'm just tired. I'm run down. And you go and take an easy week. And we used to laugh every year after it. But it happened to me as well. Like it happened. So I think that, again, not having that pressure to run well. And then I went indoors February after that. I unofficially broke Ian Stewart's 3K record. So like, and that, again, that wasn't something I was thinking about. I opened up with an 8:02, and then we were like, oh, well, let's try and break Ian's record, which because I did it on an oversized track. Ironically, the guy who's here now, Jake Haywood, he broke it officially. So he's got it. And I'm like, nah, mate, that's my record. You didn't break Ian's record, you broke my record.
The legacy continues. Just coming back to that though, Tom, because you've made some really good points there. But there's a lot of people will say that when kids go to the US, that they get leathered and thrashed by the coaches. And you've just given me a really good example that I often say. When I went over there, I had a similar experience that the young kids, they have too much testosterone and not enough common sense. So they were trying to beat, the third and the fourth years, and it was them that were themselves rather than the coaches. And that was my experience. And you replicated what I often tell other people. It's not the coaches that are thrashing them. It's the young, immature kids thrashing themselves. So.
One of the reasons I came to America was because, for me, at the age of 18, if you go, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, actually. If you go back and look at the British endurance teams at events like so back at 2008, 2009. So if you look at 2008 Olympics, 2004 Olympics, and Worlds in between, the depth of the British endurance was next to none, really. Certainly 5K, 10K, it was spare or sparse. And then if you looked at the university system in the UK at that time, even like say 2 years before that, so from 2006 forward, the British university system hadn't really produced anybody. You'll always have a good coach who might be coaching somebody who might just happen to go to, Exeter University, but like that's because they've stayed with their club coach or they've got a coach that works, but it's not necessarily a university group. So the risk I took was, well, no one's really coming out of the UK as a good athlete as of right now. So why not try America? They're producing some good athletes. So I actually delayed my what do you call it?
SAT.
I postponed my British university by what do you call it when you deferred? I deferred my university. Yeah, gap year. I said yes to Birmingham University. So my plan was I'm going to go to America because I didn't even visit Oklahoma State, which I wouldn't advise. I just went there blind. I'd met the coaches and stuff, and I just thought, well, look, if it all goes tits up, I'll just come back whenever I want. I can come back in 2 weeks if I really wanted to, and then start university a year later. So, and after about 3 or 4 weeks of being there, I called Birmingham University and I went, I ain't coming. Like, there's no way. I'm staying here. So I think that was one of the reasons why I chose America.
I think the important thing there, Tom, is you had a plan. You'd made a plan. You had a backup plan, a contingency plan, and I think that's really gold dust, and that's what this interview is about, to pick up the gold dust for the kids going through what you went through and having a plan for it.
And I've always said, and I might not make it that public or achievable, or accessible, but I've always said to any kid who's wanting to go to America, please contact me, and I'll talk to you. If you want, I'll have my parents talk to their parents, because my parents have been through it as well from their point of view. And there is a stigma with kids getting run into the ground in America. But there's also how many. Okay, if what percentage of kids come to America and get run into the ground, but what percentage of kids go to British universities and drink their careers away? So that's probably a higher percentage. So
that's a really good point.
And I'm not denying that there are some coaches in America who care too much about points and scoring points because their job's on the line. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is there's some incredible universities where you can go to with incredible coaches who do have a lot of care and who are good coaches who will care for your development, where you can go and have an amazing. If it wasn't for Oklahoma State, I don't think I'd have been the international athlete that I was. I don't think I'd have ran 13:10, and I don't believe that I'd have done it in the UK at the time. I don't think that the coaches were good enough, or I don't think I was good enough at the level to get the support. That's what I kind of generally say to people in the UK, or when I'm talking about whether UK versus America. I always say, roughly, if you're in the top 4 in your event in the UK, top 3 to be safe, you'll probably be all right staying in the UK, because you're going to get the support, whether it be Futures program or whether you're getting support from British Athletics might keep an eye on you. And this kind of rounds back to the 18 to 22 transition. But if you're not, it's a really big void, and you've got to go from racing things like under 20 championships where you're one of the best, you're the big fish in the small pond, and suddenly you're the tiny fish in an ocean. And suddenly a 348 1500 isn't even touching the sides of a, we've got 5 or 6 guys in the UK right now running 335. So like in the 15. So you're nowhere. You're not even qualifying for and it can be demoralizing. So one of the benefits with the US is you come over here, you train with, like, the coach is full time. He is paid to coach, and you come over here and there's races that you can win or be challenging in the top 3. You can go to, there's so many BMC effective, you go to the things like Stanford or the invitationals, and your coach says, look, and this might be Dave and I might have got lucky, but when I ran my 758 in Seattle, we chose the B race. I asked for I didn't, but my coach asked for the B race, even though I probably could have just clawed into the A race and then hung on. Dave was like, oh, it's so much better to win. Just so much better to win, though. Go and win. Whereas, it's hard enough to find a 758 race in the UK, and if you're not setting up yourself indoors, you're running a Birmingham World Indoor Tour where it's won in 730, 740. So then you're trying to break 8 minutes, being demoralised with being 180 meters behind.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that there, and the support you get out in America for those 4 years is amazing. And if you get to the age of 22, you've given it everything, and you're only running, 338, 1340, then look, mate, you're not going to make it. Go back and get a job. But you're not going to do that in the UK. Well, that's I can't say that. The chances of that happening in the UK, personally, I think, are a lot slimmer for the people who are in the top 10 who are in their age group, but would be overlooked by British athletics. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong by British athletics, because they can't look at everybody, but how many people have, I'm sure you'll know just as many as I will, who you look at, similar to what we've talked about with me. Well, he wasn't even good as a junior. And I'm now one of the fastest over 5K in the UK ever. So it's how many of those people are we losing due to that void that you're working on, the 18 to 22 gap?
Yeah, no, you're dead right there, and there's lots of key things you've said there about the American situation, because I think at this moment, a lot of the British and the Irish talent is over there in the USA, and the important thing is bringing them back to the UK after that, or certainly even if they don't come back, keeping them healthy enough and happy enough to perform the best, at the future championships. And absolutely. And on that one, where are you up to now, Tom? Because I know obviously you ran 13:10. Was it 2015? And